Welcome into Huntsville Sports Weekly. I'm Josh Criswell with the Huntsville Item. I'm joined by my co-host Rob Hipp of KSAM 101.7, and this is a new show that we're going to be bringing to you guys every single week moving forward, whether we have sports going on or not. We're going to be here bringing you some content. We're going to talk to Sam Houston State head football coach Keeler here in just a few minutes, give some great insight just on maneuvering a pandemic as a college football program, and also why the Bearcats are optimistic about their chances to not only contend for a Southland championship, but a national title as well. But first things first, Rob, gonna jump over the high school scene real quick. And last year you were the voice of the Bearcats here at KSAM. Now you're also going to be calling Huntsville football games on the radio dial. Tell us a little bit about what the station has planned for this fall.
Yeah, we're excited. Especially the launch of this here with you, Josh, and with the Huntsville Item, and then of course me here with KSAM with Huntsville Sports Weekly. Very excited about this. We're going to bring a show that's going to bring on both Sam Houston State and of course Huntsville, the high school with the Hornets. Excited about that. And this year, the whole pandemic has everything kind of up in the air still. I mean, we'll hear from Keeler in a little bit, as you said, but Josh, there's still so much that we don't know, that they don't know, and it is literally a day-by-day process. What we are planning, of course, the UIL has said, okay, if you're 5A and 6A, you can start a month later in September. The lower classifications will start football as scheduled, but even that's up in the air. Some schools have said, we don't know if we're going to be able to play, if we're going to be able to start. So we're going right now at KSAM as if, yes, we are going to start that opening week versus Nederland coming up in September now. Instead of at the end of August, it'll be at the end of September. Our plan this year, because of the UIL lifting restrictions, is something totally unique that we've never had here in Huntsville, and quite frankly, we've never had in the state of Texas, at least in a long time, is live video on Friday night. Normally with football, you can't have live video. But this year, because of COVID-19, Dr. Breidup and the executive staff, they met and they said, look, we're going to raise that live video restriction on Friday night. So here at KSAM, we're going to bring you the live video as it happens of Huntsville High School football along with our regular radio feed. So that's going to be really neat to be able to see it in action. And that's important, Josh, because we don't know, are we going to be playing at Bowers yet? We don't know. That doesn't seem too optimistic right now. That takes you to another level or another plan. Okay, well, if we play at Huntsville High School, how is there going to be spectators?
That's where you guys come in.
That's where hopefully we come in. And we're not the school district, so we don't make those decisions. Of course, we don't know, and the school district is still working through that as well. So really, I think it's an incredible opportunity for fans to still be engaged, and that's why we're bringing the live video. And Josh, something else that I wanted to mention, I met with Coach Southern, and he's very excited about this. But I know we're talking about football, but it's not just football. We're going to have an opportunity here at KSAM now to bring more of Huntsville High School sports, not just football, but other sports as well, throughout a video platform. So we're excited, man, and really looking forward to some of the really great changes that we're working on here at KSAM.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned the other sports. Huntsville, obviously, a softball team that was hoping to contend for that district title this year, a baseball program on the rise. Basketball teams, that could just continue to make history on the hardwood. Volleyball team, have Alyssa Fielder, who's going to be headed to Sam Houston State to play at the next level, her in a talented senior class. And of course the Bearcats and the Hornets on the football field. Really looking forward to, seeing the content that you have for them. And, it's really, as we get back to, toward the football discussion, obviously that's the first thing on the agenda for you guys is, it's an exciting year for the Hornets.
Yeah, going to be an exciting year for the Hornets. We'll see all the great changes that will happen. And then, Josh, kind of going back to you, we're talking about Bearcat football. And again, we'll hear from Keeler here in just a little bit as we had a moment to catch up with him earlier. Josh, you've been around the program a long time. Of course, I was blessed with the opportunity to be here last year as the play-by-play voice. And we'll be back again this year, not only doing Sam Houston, but of course now play-by-play for Huntsville High School. But talking specifically about Sam Houston State University, you've seen a lot of things over the years, covering them through the Huntsville Item. Of course, last year, so many injuries of a very talented team in the Bearcats that we really felt could have went a long way, but those injuries causing some havoc. Of course, Eric Schmidt going out with the wrist injury. He's all healed up. The team looks healed up. They've got a lot of time to heal, of course, because of the pandemic. But kind of your thoughts heading into this season, Josh. I think we're going to have a great defensive line. The offensive line is looking good. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the offensive line is going to be the key. We, just talked to head coach Keeler. I also spoke with senior offensive lineman Colby Thomas, a preseason All-American, and going to be playing center and kind of being the centerpiece of an offensive line that loses 4 starters from last season. They love what they bring back, though. You know, they brought in Will Jones, one of the highest rated recruits in Sam Houston State history. He's going to be a true freshman, not to mention I think they have 4 or 5 other guys coming in via transfer, several of those that have played at a very high level, you know, a couple at Maine in the CAA and a couple different other places. Then, of course, Eliasa Anderson going to be coming back with kind of a full year under his belt in the system after transferring in from Baylor. But, you know, before we go over the defense, which was arguably, you could have made the case, the best in the entire FCS last season, top 8 in 12 different categories, I think, led by a defensive line that doesn't lose anybody. And then in the secondary, of course, you have Zion McCollum at cornerback and a ton of other returners there as well. I mean, Zion, he might be the best FCS draft prospect as far as in the secondary in this draft class coming up. So, I mean, a lot to be excited about on that side of the ball. Linebacker, got to fill some holes. Really excited about Trevor Williams. They're joking that he'll have 150, 200 tackles this year. He's on the field enough to do it. So I mean that's always a good thing to see and hear. But to the offense, they just have so many weapons. It's something that I'm really excited to see because I think the defense, everyone knows the defense is going to be what it is. It's going to be the best in the Southland, and I would say easily one of the top 5, top 10 in the country as a whole. But the offensive side, you lose Nathan Stewart, I think Southland's all-time leading receiver, of course, but you bring back everybody else at that position. Really talented group of sophomores. You got D. Bowens, Ife Adai, the list goes on and on and on. And so you have those guys, you have seniors coming back as well. Brandon Tibbs and Corey Compton played, bigger roles last year. So they have a lot of weapons for Eric Schmid to throw to, and for the first time since Jeremiah Briscoe, the 2-time Walter Payton Award winner, was on campus, they know what they have going on at quarterback. And I mean, the last game before Eric broke his hand and it kind of, hit Sam Houston State from looking like we're about to dominate the Southland, kind of just stumbling out to the finish, was him passing for over 500 yards and 5 touchdowns, second most prolific passing performance in school history in his first start as the full-time starter. So a lot to be happy there. Not to mention in the backfield, you can't forget that you have Kyron Jackson, Donovan Williams coming back. Then you also add Ramon Jefferson, former almost rushed for 1,000 yards at Maine a few years back. Then Kyron Jackson and Donovan Williams, both 1,000-yard potential guys. Hero Sports has been doing its countdown of the top players at each jersey number. Donovan Williams recently got that honor for number 27. So much to look forward there. If the offensive line, Keeler's going to talk about it here very shortly coming up next, but if that offensive line, it has the talent, can they come together? That's going to be the biggest thing that determines whether Sam Houston State misses that mark of what their expectations are and if they're contending for a national championship.
Well, again, you talk about Eric Schmid last year, and of course with the hand injury and the wrist injury, now back healthier than ever this season. And you mentioned a player that I really want to keep my eyes on this season, and not to single any player out, but one that just showed a lot of heart on the team, as all the guys do, but one that really stood out to me was Ife Adai. The speed of that young man is simply phenomenal to be there. I mean, you see it on TV.
He had the play of the year in the Southland last season.
Yeah, just an unbelievable play. And I can't wait to see that connection between Eric Schmid and Ife Adai again this season. It's going to be a lot of fun.
You never really got to see it develop last season, but the flashes you did, it was just electric.
Well, we did have a chance to catch up with head coach Casey Keeler. Enjoy that interview now, and we'll be back here in just a few moments on Huntsville Sports Weekly.
You're listening to Huntsville Sports Weekly. I'm Josh Criswell. I'm joined by my co-host Rob Hipp, and our special guest today is Sam Houston State head football coach Casey Keeler. Coach, thanks for joining us. And last week at Southland Conference Media Day, you said you felt like y'all had the characteristics of a championship team last season. Why do you believe that's true in 2020, and why do you believe that the Bearcats can be a championship team in a year with such adversity?
Yeah, I think we just all felt like you win with great defenses, and I thought, if you look at man for man, I thought up and down the lineup from our secondary to our linebackers to our defensive line, we had a championship level defense. And we've played some pretty good offense here in the last 6 years. I think we've led the country 3 times in scoring. And I thought this offense had a lot of the things you needed to have a great offense. We had a terrific offensive line, felt really good about our skill kids. A tight end who ends up going and playing in one of the all-star games. And it just was that quarterback spot. And finally, when we got that quarterback spot figured out, I thought we started hitting on all cylinders with Eric Schmidt, and we all got really excited. And we're like, okay, here we go. And then, unfortunately, he goes and breaks his hand. And then you didn't realize how big a loss Mike Dare was going to be at that time. Mike had a hip operation, and Mike had, had a terrific spring. And then, Ty Brock, who you won a bunch of games with last year, he has an ankle and, really was a quarter of what he could be. And he's the guy we ended up shoveling out there and putting out there. And we just lost so many games where, we didn't play with Roy a quarterback. And so we felt if we would have had a healthy quarterback, any one of the three, we would have easily won the conference and been a team that would have been dangerous in the playoffs. So it was frustrating, but just how the team handled the adversity. They came to work every day, great energy, great enthusiasm, passion, didn't point fingers, didn't hang their heads. So I think those things that we learned from last year, Josh, are things that, we can kind of build off of and move forward.
Hey, Coach, Rob Hipp here. First and foremost, good to see you again. It's been a while, Coach. I'm glad to be in Huntsville now full time and excited to get back on the radio call again this season for Sam Houston State. There's been a little bit of operation changes during this course of the offseason and heading into next season, particularly now with Clayton Barnes joining as well as Reagan Henderson. Talk a little bit about their roles and how that's going to work from an operational standpoint.
Well, what we thought is for us to move to the next level in terms of, I think everyone will tell you the last 10 years, this has been one of the top three programs in the country in FCS football, 99 wins in 10 years. So we're looking like, what can we do to compete against, those mid-majors that are in our state, the Texas States and North Texases, the Rice, those kind of people. And we really felt we needed someone to kind of organize and consolidate our recruiting. And that's where Clayton Barnes came in. Clayton had interned with us before. He had been at Texas State. He had been at Georgia Southern. He's a football geek. He's a great eye for judging talent. And then on top of that, he can handle all the administrative duties too. So we kind of moved the position around a little bit and made it operations with recruiting. And then Reagan is just a phenomenal young man. Got his grad degree here. Bleeds, Bearcat orange. Great role model. So we got a chance to use him in operations with Clayton, but also have him handle the equipment too. So I think the two hires were really good hires for us. And I think it kind of expands a little bit our recruiting operation. And then also it's always great to bring an alum back and put him in the program too.
And Coach Josh here, one of the things that, all the fans out there are kind of still waiting to see, and I'm sure y'all are still waiting to see as well, is, how the early season schedule is going to shape up, obviously with the SWAC canceling fall sports and y'all having a potential game to fill, for y'all, how important, as a university and as an athletics department, is it to maybe have this opportunity to get a game against a FBS school to kind of maybe make up for some of those shortfalls you'll have elsewhere during the year?
Yeah, we're looking at Houston and Tulane and TCU right now. But quite honestly, a lot of the FBS programs are moving to conference-only play. And I think if they move to conference-only play across the Big Five and then the Group of Five might follow suit, then all of a sudden all those money games that the rest of the conference all had this year, those all go away, and that really changes a little bit of of what the operation might be for this season. Also, we're waiting on a determination from the NCAA. Is there going to be a championship this year? That's something that no one knows either. We might find out on August 4th that they're not going to have a national championship. Then that sort of changes your thinking a little bit too. So there's a lot of moving parts. All the decisions were going to be made by June 1. Well, now June 15th. Well, let's go July 1st. Let's go July 15th. We're running out of time. I think everyone thought they would have this thing figured out by now. We do not have this figured out yet. I told our players, we're open in September 5. We've been here. We get here about 5:30 every morning. Get them on the field for walkthroughs and conditioning. And so it's kind of a way we can lead into training camp. It's been growing really well. I've been really happy with the progress. Really impressed with how hard our kids are working and how just everything's clicking really well with, the circumstances we're under. I mean, guys are wearing masks and guys are doing, can't drink out of the water fountain. You got to, put your water into a jug, all those kind of things we're working through. But they've been really good. And so just makes you excited to see what we have out there with that 60-man group we have. There's another 40 that have come on campus. They're in the quarantine process right now. And we'll get those guys by the start of training camp, which is August 7th.
Right. And, you mentioned the start of training camp, August 7th. What's that going to look like this year? I mean, for y'all at this point, I'm sure there's a lot of uncertainty, but, what are some of the changes y'all have had to make to move forward, safely and cautiously through this time?
Well, one of the things, we're wearing masks, which when you're out there and you're sweating and you're breathing hard, it's hard. And so what our whole philosophy is, like, when you're face to face with somebody or someone's right next to you or you're talking to them, have your mask on. If you can distance yourself, get a breath, you can pull your mask down. And it's the same thing with the coaches. Either you're going to coach up close with your mask up, or you can do it from a distance. So we're just some of those things we're trying to teach the kids. We're not using a locker room because how tight locker rooms are and everyone breathing on each other. So we're asking the guys to come here. Fortunately, almost all of our guys live within a 5-minute walk of the facility. So it's just all those little things, a lot more sanitizing. All of our meetings are done by Zoom with the coaching staff. I had a in-person meeting on the field today, but we don't even do in meetings in the facility right now. There's just so much unknown with this virus that we're just being very cautious with our players and our staff. And, I'm trying to treat them as I would want, a coach to treat my son or daughter if they were playing for me or for them. And so that's kind of how we do it. And so I've told them up front, I said, we're going to be very cautious. We're responsible for you, but we're going to play September 5th as of now. So we need to move forward and find a way to get that done.
Coach Rob here again. You talked a lot at the Southland Conference about the safety and just really caring for that aspect, which is important. I know this is kind of looking farther ahead and things are still up in the air right now. We don't have confirmations, but you had briefly talked a little bit about the Battle of the Piney Woods and how that may look this season at NRG. If it's going to be there, possibly an open roof. Can you explain a little bit more about that? I know that's still a ways away, but something that a lot of folks are interested about.
Yeah, I think we've got a determination from the Texans that we could hold about 15,000 people. I think that would include sideline personnel also, in other words, players, coaches, those kind of things. So, life has changed. I mean, the world as we know it is different than it was a year ago. And so these are all the kind of things we're trying to figure out. Okay, if we have fans in the stands, which I anticipate we will, how many fans are we going to be able to hold? The Texans have determined for a college event they want 15,000. So that's the kind of stuff we're working through right now. And like I said, there's a lot of teams that are agreeing to contracts with programs, and then 3 days later they find out, well, it's conference only. So there's just a lot of moving parts. I told our guys is all you can control is what you can control. And right now what we can control is getting in shape, getting better, preparing for a September 5th opener. If you worry about all the other stuff, I said, let me do that. You don't need to worry about that stuff. And so that's what we're kind of doing. We're just kind of, plodding forward as we're playing September 5th. And, that's kind of the mindset we have. There's a lot of moving, pieces and a lot of balls in the air, whatever term you want to use. And I think there's some things that are going to happen that are out of our control when it comes to FBS programs, if they're going to take a game with an FCS school or they're just going to go conference play. Well, we only go conference play then. By going conference play only, we can move the season back a little bit, give a little bit more time to figure this thing out. So I still think there's a lot of questions. It's hard when we're out there, Rob, like doing drills with each other. It's hard not to breathe on each other. And you saw what just happened with the Marlins. You had a couple guys who didn't keep the integrity of the bubble, and they went out to some restaurants in Atlanta. And all of a sudden, I think there's 18 of them right now in the program that have tested positive. That can happen anywhere. All you need is one person to let their guard down or not follow the integrity of the program, and this virus spreads so quickly. And some of our guys, I mean, I don't want to hear this, 20-year-olds just get sniffles. Some of our guys have had some pretty significant symptoms. And so that made me very aware of, this is not just hey, they're 20-year-olds, they'll get over it. We need to make sure that we're looking out for our young men, because there's a lot of unknowns with all this.
Coach, just one last question for you here. You know, we talked about it earlier this year, how rebuilding the offensive line was going to be the biggest key for y'all in terms of winning a championship, and also mentioned today, you know, defense wins championships. And, you know, on that defense, probably the biggest piece is that defensive line that brings back everybody from a unit that was top 8 in the country in over 10 categories. You know, for y'all as a team this year, Coach, how big are the big guys up front going to be in terms of y'all competing for a national championship?
Yeah, you know, it's funny, when I'm out there watching us go through stuff, I remark how good the offensive line looks. And I tell you what, we've two of the best freshmen I've ever seen. I mean, these guys are going to be really, really good football players. And then I have to remind myself, they're not blocking anyone right now. You know, we're going on air. On air, we look pretty damn good. But, there's going to be it's going to be really more the coordination and getting them all playing, you know, as a unit. Coach Stapleton and I were texting last night about this. The talent's there. It's just the matter if they gel or not, and how long it takes them to gel. And can we still win some football games on the process of them gelling? But in terms of just talent, we're a pretty talented team now. I think our skill kids are as good as any in the country. I love our defense. And again, it comes down to that offensive line. The ability's there. It's just a lot of new faces, a lot of guys never playing with each other, some guys coming off some injuries, getting healthy, those kind of things. So, but the good news is that group is there. It's just a matter of, can we gel them as quickly as possible?
All right. Well, that's all I got for you, Coach. Rob, you have anything else?
No, Coach. Again, just appreciate your time and, you know, your commitment, of course, to the safety of the kids here at Sam Houston State. Really looking forward to the season, and, you know, just keep going us forward. That's the way it sounds like everybody's planning right now. So we'll be there for you along the season. Appreciate you, Coach.
I appreciate it. Our kids are really excited. They see when we're out there how smooth we're moving and how good we look, and how impressive the new players have been. Some of the transfers, but it's a great group of freshmen. I mean, I can't emphasize how happy are this group of freshmen. So I think there'll be a collective disappointment if we can't get this thing started. I'm fine with playing a little bit later. If we have to open up September 22nd or in the beginning of October, but to lose this season would be really disappointing. But again, at the same time, we want to do what's right for our players and the safety of our players, coaches, and staff.
Well, Coach, whenever we can and it's safe and possible, we'll be looking forward to seeing you guys out there. But, you know, until then, thanks for joining us, and we'll have to have you on again here sometime soon.
All right, guys. Great job. Thank you.
Welcome back, friends, to Huntsville Sports Weekly. I'm Rob Hipp of KSAM here in Huntsville, alongside co-host Josh Criswell of the Huntsville Item. We just heard from head coach KC Keeler, and the biggest takeaways from a lot of that, still a lot of unknowns throughout Bearcat Nation. We don't know how things are going to happen, and I don't want to take it this way, but Josh, you can kind of think, man, we don't know what's going on. It may sound kind of negative, so let's spin things a little more positive now. And in the show like this, as we talk positive, what are some things that you're looking forward to? Maybe one thing with Sam Houston State University that you're looking forward to this season, and then also something with Huntsville Hornets.
Yeah, I'll start off with Sam Houston State. Something I mentioned a little bit earlier, alluded to, is, you know, with that Sam Houston State defense has a chance to be one of the best in the country, and kind of like the offensive line is going to dictate probably how the season goes as a whole. I think the linebacker group's kind of that one where there's a lot of optimism, but still, you know, you have a few questions whenever you lose two of the greatest leaders the program's ever had in Hunter Brown and Royce C., who both graduated this past season. But a guy that really excites people over there, and I'm excited to see play a bigger role. The coaches say there might not have been a more efficient player in terms of just plays made into plays on the field, and that's Trevor Williams, a former A&M Consolidated star out there in College Station, now at the Bearcats, and he's going to be commanding the middle of the field for them. The coaches have joked that he's going to have 150, 200 tackles if he's on the field enough this year, and he's just the guy that's maybe been a little bit more of a quiet leader, and this year they're just kind of looking for him to take that next step and really maybe fill some of that void that's left. Hunter Brown and Roy C., those were two guys, as you saw, really led that Bearcat defense and really that team too as well. But just really excited about them. And then also you got to look at guys like Markel Perry, who really kind of broke out last season, was just a force in the backfield, wreaked havoc all year long. It seemed like he was either racking up TFLs or sacks throughout different games during the season. Was obviously part of that defense that shut out the number 9 team in the country in Nichols last season. So Markel Perry, a guy to look for. And then another one too, keep an eye on Quentin Brown, a guy who went to school down in Conroe, went to Tulane, and then actually, Willie Fritz called up Keeler and said, we have a guy who's looking to maybe transfer, and he could be a great fit for you guys. Quentin Brown's a guy coming in from Tulane and FBS programs, competed against some great talent out there. And so I'm excited to see what he's able to do against Southland competition. And then I guess, going over to Huntsville, obviously I have to mention, they lose over 30 seniors. I think they only have 4 returning full-time starters, if I'm not mistaken. But, the guy that I'm looking forward to the most out of the returning starters is Ed Bobino. I think earlier today just picked up his 7th Division I offer. Defensive tackle, potential to be like 6+ foot, 300-pound athletic guy that can play across the line. Had 5-6 tackles for loss against Fort Bend Marshall, state runner-up last season. So he's a guy that really accelerated down the stretch of last season. And then you also got, his brother on the team as well. You got Quaterian Riles, on a defensive line that's really going to, I think, kind of set the tone for Huntsville on that side of the ball. But the thing I'm looking forward to the most with this team is watching A.J. Wilson grow at quarterback. He came in for 2 games last year, the final 2 games of the season. Huntsville needed wins in those 2 games to secure a playoff spot. They did just that. AJ's a guy, the first time I saw him was in the spring game a year ago, and I was kind of, who is this freshman? Because I just saw him take one 80 yards to the house against the Huntsville defense that was the best in one of the best districts in all of Class 5A Division II. So really excited to see him grow because he's a guy who's, you see him getting stronger, you see him in practice, improving those mechanics, and he's a guy who impressed you with his arm as a sophomore last season. So you saw some of the connections he was able to make. And so him along with, Justin Butcher, who he's going to be throwing the ball to. I think he had about 4 touchdowns last season and came up big for Huntsville in some key spots. So going to be a lot of new faces, but, especially on that offensive side, I think the thing I'm looking forward to the most is just seeing how AJ, who's, he's a star on the basketball court, star on the football field. He's just one of those all-around special athletes.
Yeah.
And, whenever you have a special athlete behind center, you always have a potential for a special season.
I think I'll put it simple, Josh. I'm just looking forward to getting back to football. So we're going to see what's happening. I'm excited to be on the call for both the Huntsville Hornets and Sam Houston State on KSAM. Of course, you can keep up with our live coverage at KSAM1017.com and also the KSAM social media pages. But then also this season partnering with the Huntsville Item and Josh bringing the content as well. Josh, how can folks find out about you and the Huntsville Item?
Yeah, so just follow me on Twitter at item_Criswell, and item_sports for all things on social media, and then as well as Facebook and Instagram as well. And then online, we're at itemonline.com/sports. Also, if you want to subscribe to the paper, itemonline.com/subscribe, or give us a call. We're happy to, talk to you guys, and we'd love to, get this content out to you as much as possible.
For sure. Before we wrap up here, just wanted to give you an overlay as fans out there that are keeping up with the Huntsville Hornets, that are keeping up with Sam Houston State University and football and other athletics here in Huntsville. This show every Thursday. We're going to air it every Thursday. The first one here, of course, in more of a recorded setting, but we are planning on making this show live. We'll have more of a studio quality as we go forward. Of course, you'll be able to go back and hear it on the podcast channels. You'll be able to go back and watch it as well throughout various social media platforms. But this show will be every single Thursday night. I think we're aiming for around 6:30, and it will be live. So as we go forward, you're going to have an opportunity to call in, to ask questions, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll bring it to you every week right here on KSAM along with the Huntsville Item. For Josh Criswell, I'm Rob Hipp. This has been the first edition of many of Huntsville Sports Weekly. Until next week, God bless. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for joining us.